All right. Thanks for being here. I would like to start with a little thought experiment with you guys. Okay, imagine you're an author. You're a book author. So specifically, you write children's books. And you're very good. And that is why you have just signed a new deal with a major publishing house for your next 5 books. And that's awesome. You're very stoked and happy, and you get to work. So you write the next book. And if you've ever actually written a book, you know that this takes a long time, so weeks or months. And usually your relationship and your family kind of suffers a bit. But not a problem, because obviously your family is your greatest fans, right? Your wife, and you have a 6-year-old daughter, and she loves your books, and she goes to school and she brags about, my dad writes these great books, and so it's all good. And you're finished with your newest book, you hand it into the publisher, and it's going to take a few weeks for editing and so forth, and it will be published very soon. So at the school of your daughter there is going to be a school event, and your daughter comes up to you and she says, hey Dad, can you, at the school event, read a chapter from your new book? That would be great. I told all my friends that it's going to be there soon. And so you say, no. And she's like, what do you mean, no? Well, then you tell her a story about exclusive rights to the book that you have sold to the publisher, and you can only read in an author's reading after it has been officially published, but that is only in a few weeks. And so you're breaking a law if you do this, and you can't. And you look into your daughter's eyes, and obviously she doesn't understand a thing about rights and authors and publishers, and so I think she will be really sad and not exactly understanding. Okay. Wow, what a great way to start a talk, right, with a sad story like this. Why am I telling you this? Well, at Mercedes-Benz, we had a situation that was very similar to this up until a few years ago. We would write code for an internal customer, and that internal customer who paid for the code, he or she had the exclusive rights and ownership of that code. We were not allowed to share that code with someone else in our company even, right? So another neighboring team would come and say, hey, that's great, can we use some of your code? And you would have to turn them down. And they would also be sad, maybe not children's eyes sad, but still what are you talking about? We're all one company. Yeah, but this customer and that customer, yeah. Okay, so, what a strange situation, right? Now, if you could get approval, written consent from your customer, from your internal customer, then it would actually be okay to share the code. All right, so let me tell you another story of a situation that we had. So we had one product team. They developed a translation component, whatever exactly it was translating, doesn't matter. And they talked to their neighbors, literally their next door neighbors. They had the office right next to each other. And they said, we also are going to develop a translation component. That's interesting, so let's talk about this. And they did, they talked about, and then they found out, hey, wow, we could actually, if we just made it a little bit more general, then both of us could use that code. And then it would end up obviously saving a lot of time and effort. That's great. Okay, so story 1 in mind, we have to get written consent from our customers. So they went to their internal customers, one here, one there, and they said, hey, we have translation component, blah, we could join forces, and that would work out for the greater benefit of all. And so, the internal customers, they said, that is a great idea. Yeah, but we still don't want you to do it. Excuse me? What? No, then we would have to align with the other product team and talk to them, and that will be more effort. And besides, we have the budget. We don't need to save money. We have the budget for, it's there. Let's just do it our way. Okay, wow. This is a catastrophe, right? I mean, this is saving money within the company and effort and everything. And they said, yeah, it's a good idea, but nah, let's not do it. Okay, so this is problem number one. Legal was an issue, right? Number two, mindset was an issue. There was just no mindset for sharing stuff. The mindset was, if it's not invented here, we probably shouldn't rely on it. And you've probably heard this kind of mindset. But now, even if you had all the budget in the world, you still wouldn't have all the time in the world, let alone the developer manpower to develop everything yourself, right? And it just doesn't make sense to write code for something for which there is already a perfectly working solution out there. Now, I realize I am preaching to the choir at an open source conference. I'm not trying to convince you, I know you're already there. But for a big company, that is a change of mindset that does require a lot of work. A study by Synopsys, the guys who do Black Duck, has revealed that nowadays 97% of all new software uses open source. And up to 2/3 even of the entire code base is made up of open source software. So that's using open source, but if you just use open source, you know, you're not utilizing so much of the potential that open source has, right? And so here's just one more thing. A study by Frank Nagel from the Harvard Business School has found out that companies which don't only use FOSS but actively contribute back have twice the benefit as companies that only use open source. So if you want to do open source, do it right. Not just use, but also contribute back and also publish your own open source projects. Why is this, by the way? So when you contribute to open source, you go through a feedback process because you engage with the other developers out there. And that is, you know, you talk to the brightest minds in the software world. And that is like a continuous internal training program. And this isn't a one-time effect only, which merely occurs at the beginning when you start doing open source. This is an effect that keeps going on. So this is something with which you can get senior management, you know, hey, we save a lot of money, you know, twice as much. You know, so, and this study was done really thoroughly. I read it, it's good. So, so we started evangelizing open source at Mercedes-Benz. So it was me and a bunch of others who said, look, we can't go on like this. We need to embrace open source. And I was a Scrum Master at the time still, and so it was my job to make my team happy and to help them perform at their best. And you can't perform at your best without open source, right? Doesn't make any sense. So yada, 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 fast forward, you know, we were able to convince C-level management. They heard our arguments. There's obviously a lot more arguments to why open source than just these two things, right? As I said, I don't want to preach to the choir anymore. So they saw it and they said, yeah, you guys are right, open source it is. So open source was taken into the IT strategy at Mercedes-Benz and still is there, of course. And our CIO, he's a big fan of open source. So that's good. So we're there. So that's only the first step, really. I mean, it felt like a big step, but it's only the first step, because now the next thing is, how do you tell everyone? Just because it's now part of the IT strategy doesn't mean that everybody knows about it. News tend to travel slowly in a big corporation, and I'm sure some of you are from big corporations as well, and you probably know this problem, right? So you keep talking and talking and talking, and then still, oh, you haven't heard. Okay. So how do we tell everyone? How do we make it a part of our day-to-day work? Not just know about it, but also include it in your day-to-day work. And how do you get it into people's mindset? That's probably the most important part, because once it's there, then people are motivated to do it intrinsically. Okay, now, so we thought, putting it on a slide, hey, FOSS is now part of the IT strategy, that doesn't cut it. We need to do something a bit more radical, something, you know, that it has a bigger effect and then, so as I said, I used to be Scrum Master, so we had the Agile Manifesto in mind, and so this is why we created the Mercedes-Benz FOSS Manifesto. And it is now one of our key pillars in how we want to become a good citizen of the open source movement. And so here it is. It has 3 parts. This is the first one. This is the preamble. So the preamble is sort of there to set the stage, give it a solemn note, you know, and to show we really mean it. So it reads, the Mercedes-Benz FOSS Center of Competence and the CIO, blah, 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 have decided to establish these FOSS guiding principles. So Mercedes-Benz FOSS Center of Competence, that's what we call our OSPO internally, Open Source Program Office at Mercedes has a different name. Maybe we'll rename it soon, but so our OSPO. And then the CIO. So this shows 2 things. It shows it comes from the people at the base, we consider ourselves the base, and the CIO. So, and it goes even further. Our CIO, as I said, is a big fan of open source, so he took it up to the Mercedes Board of Management and showed it to Ola Kelenius, the CEO, and his buddies there. And they saw it and they approved. They said, good, yeah, let's do it. And so this is really important, by the way. You need C-level buy-in because, as you will see, the manifesto talks about how employees can use their working time, and you can't make assumptions like that without C-level buy-in, right? And so it says, you can read it all yourself, yeah, but it says, hey, we want to improve our software development, and we really mean it. We want to be there. Okay, so, oh, and I don't know if you have seen the Lisbon Treaty on the European Union. I mean, who hasn't, right? So that inspired me personally. I wrote this together with a colleague, the 2 of us, and that is the Lisbon Treaty. I read this, not the entire thing. It's actually, you know, it's a lot of legalese, mumbo jumbo. It is a bit difficult to read for normal people. I actually spoke to a lawyer once, and he said, "What do you mean? We are normal people too." And I'm like, "Well, you look like normal people, but you don't talk like normal people, you know? I mean, you use different words when you talk, you know? That's not normal people speak." And he's like, yeah, whatever. Okay, so anyway, the Lisbon Treaty on the European Union, it has also, you know, this blah, 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 and have decided, so that's why I thought this was kind of nice, so I took that. Oh, my shot at legalese. Anyway, so here's the second page. This is the company principles. So the company principles are, from the company point of view, of course. And the first one here is the following. So a lot of times our employees are still a bit uncertain. So it is okay now to use open source and even contribute back. You know, because remind you, up until 5-6 years ago, that just hasn't been the case. We came from only our own stuff towards we're going fully open in a rather short time. So there was still a bit of uncertainty. And it is the purpose of principle number 1 to tell our employees not only, hey, it's absolutely okay to do this, we actually want you to do this. We encourage you. We're sending you on that mission. Please go out there in open source and be active, okay? So Mercedes-Benz will support and encourage its employees to use, contribute to, and create FOSS projects, both in open and inner source endeavors. I realize FOSS means free and open source, and then it says inner source right afterwards, but you know, we did play around with the wording, and we kind of thought this was okay and hopefully understandable. So now a lot of times employees will tell you, yeah, but you know what? I don't have time to do open source. I have to work productively in my actual project. You know, I can't do this on the side. So it is the purpose of principle number 2 to tell them that it is indeed absolutely okay to participate in open source on company time. Yeah, and it's not just on the side, because this will benefit you, this will benefit your project, and the open source community. But since it benefits your project, it's not on the side or extra, it's part of your work. So do it, it's absolutely fine. Yeah, and so that's what I mentioned. You need C-level buy-in to make a claim like this. Yeah, because you're now saying your employees can use the project this way. Oops, no, I'm sorry. Right, this is still a challenge because time is always short, right? I know it sounds nice. Yeah, you can do this on the side. You can do this not on the side. You can do this in your work time. But yeah, but there's so much pressure and so forth. So it's still difficult for people to actually put this into realization. But it's working better and better. Before the FOSS Manifesto, we would have a situation like this. They couldn't contribute to open source in their work time, so they would go home and in the evening create a bug fix for an open source library that they were using so they could use it the next day at work. And that is really stupid, right? I mean, that goes against working laws in Germany. It goes against, obviously you're doing this for the benefit of the company, so please use your company time for it. Okay, so this is putting this into writing, and now as an employee you can say, hey, FOSS Manifesto, principle number 2 says, and so it's fine, okay? What else? Then 3, Mercedes-Benz shall encourage and facilitate learning and advancement of employees through FOSS activities. So that goes without saying, I think, pretty clear. Go to a conference, for example. I always tell my people, hey, go to a conference. It's a great way of advancement of learning, right? I am saying that, yeah, so. He's one of us, so. Go to a conference, maybe give a talk even. Okay, that's a great way of learning. Engage with the open source community, or do an online training, do a course, whatever. Please learn and advance in FOSS. Number 4, Mercedes-Benz shall promote visibility in open source communities. So we're a member of the Linux Foundation, for example. We're strategic members of the Eclipse Foundation. We're members of Cloud Native and a few more. I think, the foundations, obviously, we're at the EclipseCon. Foundations are doing great work, so it's a great thing to be active here as well. All right. Timing, by the way. A German physicist from the 16, 1700s, Georg Christoph Lichtenberg, he said, you should never be too busy so you don't have the time to think anymore. And principle number 2 is kind of saying, you should never be too busy so you don't have time to do open source, right? Putting this into practice, as I said, is still a struggle at times, but hey, we're working on it. So, next slide. These are the employee principles now. Principles on FOSS from an employee point of view. So they basically ask of our employees to become more active in the FOSS world and to think FOSS first. So principle number 1 says, an engineer shall look for open and inner source alternatives before writing custom code or using proprietary alternatives. The order is clear. Please first look in open source. If you don't find anything there what is suitable for you, please look in inner source. And only then, if there's also nothing there, only then consider writing your own code or buying something from a third-party vendor. Remember, it always used to be, or still is a lot of times, make or buy. And we are now saying FOSS, open source, inner source, and only then think about make or buy, okay? Number 2, an engineer shall strive to be active in the inner source community, so that is explicit. We do value inner source also. We're also still struggling with making this really happening, I want to be honest with you, but it's our clear intent, and we have some really great projects already coming out of inner source as well. So inner source is good, and then open source, an engineer shall contribute to open source project within the scope of his or her day-to-day work. So this is within the scope, this is kind of saying, I mean, if you like Minecraft, that's great, contribute like 2 days a week to Minecraft, not so sure about that, if it's within your day-to-day work, and if it, then fine, but within reason, okay, but that's not a problem. I mean, people are not all of a sudden, oh, I can do open source, I'll do Minecraft 5 days a week. Not happening, right? Okay. And then lastly, number 4, this is sort of a mini code of conduct. So basically, Mike Milinkovic already said it this morning, be nice, behave well, and remember that how you behave out there will reflect back to you and to the company as a whole. So it's obviously in the best interest of everyone to uphold a good image here. Be nice, that's it. Okay, we have a longer code of conduct as well, but that's the mini version of it. Okay, so that's almost it. Where can you find the FOSS Manifesto from Mercedes-Benz? You can find it here on our open source landing page. That landing page is still it's actually not that new anymore. I keep saying it's still fairly new because we don't have that much stuff on there yet. We're adding more and more as we go along, so you can see some of our open source projects. You can see some blog entries and a bit of information. And you can find the FOSS Manifesto there. You can see it like here, you can download it. It has a link to a GitHub repository with the manifesto. And we have put that under a Creative Commons 0 license, so the least restrictive license there is, I think. And the purpose is, if you think, well, this is kind of nice, I would like to have that in my company as well, you can take it, you can show it to your management, or maybe you are management and say, yes, I want to adopt it. Daniel, yeah, maybe at Bitergia. So you can use it, you can alter it, if that is, if one of the principles is something you don't like, or you want to just alter it, you want to add something, you want to leave something out, you can do with it whatever you like, okay? And you don't have to credit us either. We just hope maybe it's a nice starting point. If you have the same problems that we had, you want to establish FOSS at your company, and you're still struggling with how to, maybe this can help you as well, okay? Yeah, but I think that's it. Oh yeah, wait, here's my 10 seconds of advertisement. My CEO asked me to do this, so we're hiring. Oh yeah, who isn't? I know. Yeah, but we're a really cool company, and we make nice cars. Okay, so seriously, if you're looking for a job, consider us. Thank you so much for listening. We hope this has inspired you a little bit and maybe can help you as well. And I think there's time for questions. Yeah, we have 10 minutes. I have time for questions. So thanks very much. I'll take questions. Yeah. Matthew.
Of course, Mercedes-Benz I work on the manifesto. I found it everywhere internally. I can't find it on the site.
You can't find it?
Can you tell me where it should be on?
Okay, sorry. So if you go to this website, you're on the website? And then on the top right corner, see here? Yeah, good. But thanks, Matt, for pointing this out. I think we should highlight this. All right, thanks. And a question in the back, yeah. Yeah.
The question is, you add this company principle too with this time issue. How about when spending time on things that are relevant for the project, but not for the open source project, but not necessarily relevant for the day-to-day work, like doing reviews on stuff that's not directly relevant for the Mercedes-Benz project?
Yeah. Wait. Okay. Let's do one after the other. So let me rephrase to make sure I got it right. So you are asking, it's okay for our employees to work on open source if it benefits their project, but what if they want to work on that open source project that doesn't directly benefit our own project?
They use the project, but they work as a good citizen in the project, so that also always means that you have to do stuff that's not directly relevant.
Yeah. Yeah, so that is also explicitly okay. Yeah. Again, within reason, right? But so we also encourage our employees do contributions, but the number of contributions is a lot of times not the problem of open source projects. A lot of times, you know, they are swamped with contributions. So first of all, we're asking our employees, please do high quality contributions if at all possible. And second, if you want to engage yourself more and even maybe become a maintainer in an open source project, that is good as well. Yeah, okay, within reason. And it, you know, if it starts drifting away to this is not useful for us at all, maybe reconsider it, but yeah, okay, good. And then the second question?
Finally decided to build it because there is nothing you can use. How easy is it to build it open source?
So if we decide to build our own project, how easy is it to publish as open source? So there are two versions on this. One is the official and one is the engineering version. No, so we want to make it as easy as possible. We really encourage our employees, please publish open source projects. A few are there already. And so if somebody wants to publish a project as open source, you know, they need a bit of help. How do we do it? They can always approach us, and then we help them with the process. There is a process because, you know, obviously there are a lot of legal restrictions and requirements. So we have a training, first of all, that they have to go through, and then we walk them through the process. And it's not that difficult, I think. I mean, the first few projects, there's like, oh, this is so difficult. Then we got their feedback, and then we, you know, made it easier here and there, I hope. So now, I mean, basically you need a signature, no, 2 signatures from senior management saying, okay, fine. You need to check for security problems, yeah, and so forth. So I think it's not that difficult. Yeah, I hope so. Thanks. Daniel?
So thank you for the presentation. So question here. So you've gone through a set of principles. Then you've been sharing some ideas about how to move forward outdoors. But if we think about indoors, then given the automotive industry is a really high outsourced industry and so on, so can you share about some challenges that you've been facing internally? And the second question is...
Wait, one question at a time, because then I'll forget. Okay, so the first question is some challenges that we had with publishing open source or with...
Yeah, basically changing the internal culture, like, hey, we are now moving from open source scenario, so that's like
yeah, okay, so changing the culture. I mean, that is that was one big step. You know, first we had this in our Mercedes-Benz Tech Innovation smaller unit, and then I was able to show it to the CIO of the mother company, and he said, that's great, I want that for the entire company. You know, and so that really helped. Up until that point, you know, we were really struggling spreading the good news, and with that, you know, it came from bottom and top, so that was good. At first, of course, there were still people here and there said open source really, I mean, it's dangerous, you know, and blah. But okay, these voices are less and less. Now, one of the big challenges is still we are asking our engineers to be active, and they are, but not yet to the extent that we want them to be. Yeah, so this is just taking more and more evangelizing and legwork and talking to people.
And the second question is basically about time. So how long has it been taking this journey so far?
Okay, so the first stories that I shared, that was about 6 years ago, pretty much. You know, then it was like really inner source. What do you mean? No. Open source? Yeah. So then we came along, I think about 5 years ago, we published a new IT strategy, including FOSS. And the manifesto now is, I think, 3 years old. Nick, do you remember? I think it was 3 years that we published it, first in Mercedes-Benz Tech Innovation, then still called Daimler TSS, and 2 years in the mother company. Yeah. And it's still work, you know, it's like an oil tanker. Big corporations, you know, they move very slowly. Thanks, okay. And yeah.
My question is Mercedes going to use open source also as a parameter when with a supplier? Okay, for the sake of that,
yeah.
so like spreading that.
Right, okay, so the question is, we're using open source and embracing it. What about with suppliers? And so that is yet another challenge that we face, because yes, we do encourage our suppliers to use open source. We are even thinking about asking them to get certifications, you know, that they're open source, open chain, you know, maybe you heard of that. We haven't done that yet, but we are asking them. Now with suppliers it can be difficult because they obviously want to sell us things, right? And so they don't always want to say, you know, we want to sell you this, but there's an open source solution that works just as nice. You know, you will never hear that from a supplier, of course.
And also thinking, let's say, very footprinting. You are a contributor, okay, suppose you same price, same feature, but you are more active on open source, so probably you use more, and so probably you are more robust in the future, you are more efficient, so use as a parameter for the selection. If you communicate this to the supplier, I think we will.
Yes, I think you're right. So we haven't done that yet, but we will move towards that more and more, that we're asking our suppliers if you do you use open source and also contribute back when working with us. This will probably put you ahead in the selection process. That's the intent. Yeah, okay, thank you. And
so there's a huge good case for use Minecraft over the day there. You can actually use a Minecraft tested self-driving things inside the map there.
Okay. Okay. Good. All right. Good. Fine. Works. You can use fine. If it works, if it helps, good.
See, it's not a joke anymore. Even that's.
Yeah. I Minecraft just popped into my head. I didn't actually specifically mean Minecraft, just an example. But okay, good, great. Thanks, Elio. And one question here?
Yeah, I'm also interested in did you face really active resistance during this journey? Because you were telling that the CIO was loved it, kind of.
He was what?
And so you were telling that your CIO, for instance, loved this idea, kind of. But did you also face active resistance somehow during this journey? Because, I'm working for the open source company, and for me it's quite natural. But when I talk to friends, for instance, from the engineering field, especially during this time when there was this Log4j a few years back, it's totally unnatural for them to kind of share your business know-how, so it's competitors' problem. So, was that a problem? A real problem for you, or were you always able to find arguments to address it?
So, the thing is, what we are not going to share in open source, obviously, are things that give us a competitive advantage, right? So we will not share autonomous driving algorithms with, the open source community, because that's how we want to make money, yeah? But things that don't have a competitive edge, that's the kind of things we want to share, yeah? And work together with other players in the automotive industry, not just automotive, of course, but like for example, in working groups in the Eclipse Foundation. Yeah. Does that answer your question at all?
For me, it's quite clear. So, but I'm always interested because when I was talking to these folks that are coming from really different universes, it's sometimes hard for me to kind of emphasize the advantages in their words or in their language.
Okay, good, thanks. So I think we're running out of time, but we have two more questions that I would like to take. So please, you go first. Yeah. No. It doesn't matter.
I would be interested in the process for contribution. So how complicated is it at your side to contribute?
Yeah.
Also working in a big company, and if you there want to do a small contribution, you have to follow this huge process, huge approval steps.
Right.
How did you solve this?
I understand what you mean, because we at first had that too, and it was a bit of a tug between the legal department and us techies, right? And they wanted a huge thing, and we said, no, we can't. So we struggled a little bit, and then we finally agreed on something that was way too big for our taste. And then we said, okay, let's do it then we'll see how it works. And then we found out soon that it didn't work, and then we went to the legal department and said, look, our engineers are not happy, and we have to change it. So we toned it down. So right now, I think it's not too bad. It's still a bit more than an engineer would like, but it's okay. I think I'm happy. Details, we can talk about that later if you like, because of time, but it's not too bad now. Thanks. And last question, thank you.
Hi, so we are also working directly in open source testing the working group.
Yeah.
So we know the problem what we have.
Yeah.
How to deal with maintenance issues and grading of maintenance. So if you're out there and then there is no maintainer and no community, what do you do with that?
So wait, if it's our project or not our project?
Your project, you push it out in open source.
Yeah.
Nobody's contributing features. So this is kind of that.
Nobody's contributing? Well, okay. See, only 2% of open source projects are actually successful. So that means 98% aren't. And so this is, I could give a very long answer. Let me try to make a short answer. So, community management obviously is one thing, because a lot of times our engineers think, hey, if it's good, people will find out automatically and work on it, and that's not happening, right? So I tell them, you have to do community management, you have to make it more successful and so forth. And in the end, if it's our project, we probably have an interest in maintaining it, and if there's no maintainer anymore, then the project will die, I guess. Yeah, and that's also fine, right? Yeah. Okay. Thank you all for being here. Sorry for going a bit over time. Enjoy the rest of the conference. Thanks. See you later.